Welcome to the SFA Orchestra of the Pines pre-show. I'm Megan Carswell.
And I'm Colin Maxwell. Tonight, we'll be talking about the performances and giving you an inside look into the concert.
Some of the pieces that will be performed tonight are works of Mozart, Respighi, and Dubois, with a solo by saxophonist Jamal Brown.
Before we get into the music, though, let's talk about the history of the orchestra. The orchestra was founded more than 20 years ago and has been under the direction of Dr. Gregory Grabowski since 2019.
One thing that is special about the orchestra is the performance opportunities are offered to both undergraduate and graduate music majors as well as non-majors. In fact, right now we'd like to welcome some of the students that will be performing in tonight's show.
Hi, welcome to the show. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
Sure. I'm Abdel Martinez, and I'm concertmaster.
And I'm Kenny Waldrop, and I am the principal cellist.
Well, it's great to have you guys. We're going to ask you a couple of questions. I think Megan has one first.
Yes. Oh, that's for them. So just tell us, you're the concert master. So what does that job kind of entail?
I think the main thing is concertmaster is being a facilitator for the conductor. With a group of 90 plus people, it can be very time consuming, so my job is to just make it as easy as possible to communicate what the conductor wants and to get that across to the entire orchestra.
And Kenny, you said that you play the cellist. How does one really get into that?
So I got into playing the cello by first and sixth grade. I was in our fifth grade choir, and then I was kind of like, I don't want to be in choir with all my friends. I want to play something different. And so I chose to play the cello because I was kind of a short, squat little boy. And so I wanted to do something different, and the cello, I just fell in love with that deep tone, and here I am.
All right. So speaking as actually a past band member, why did you guys decide to stay in orchestra going into college?
For me, it was mainly because of my directors before college. They really kept me really interested, and they made me realize that I had a special gift in music. Throughout high school and middle school, it was just, if there was one thing I could always run to, it was music. Whether I was nervous, happy, sad, or anything, music was always there.
My answer is a lot like Abdiel's. I just had lots of great directors that would really give me the encouragement I needed to really kind of be that person that would want to share it. I've always had a love for teaching. My grandfather was a teacher, my grandmother was a teacher, and so just having that love of music and for teaching, it just seemed like the natural thing to do.
So we're going to have some great pieces by very famous composers. What would y'all say is your favorite piece that you will be performing tonight?
I would say the Mozart, simply because I haven't had many opportunities to perform it, and being concertmaster for one of them is just really a privilege. Having to lead sectionals, it just requires so much focus and detail, and I think it's a great opportunity for me.
I really like the Pines of Rome. It's a really great piece. It has lots of different emotions in it. We start with like very small, kind of very intimate gatherings of instruments all the way up to the very end when we have literally everyone in the orchestra performing at one time. So that's one really special thing.
That's very cool.
So kind of shooting off that question, what would you guys in return say is the hardest piece that you're playing tonight?
Easily Pines of Rome. It's just such a complex piece. Your ears have to be ready at all times, listening to winds and brass. Again, as concertmaster, I just have to be aware of every single section, but again, it's really rewarding in the end. So.
I go along with that with the Pines of Rome. It just has so many intricate parts for the cello section especially. We have parts where it's just us playing really like intense like chords versus these parts that are super fast that you'll hear in the first movement with like lots of really high cello and violin, and so it's just super tricky.
So obviously you would both agree that SFA has an amazing orchestra program. So what kind of set SFA apart from other collegiate orchestras?
I think what sets it apart is just the amount of support we give each other. It's very easy in other big schools for it to become a competition for, say, the concertmaster spot, the principal spot, but really I think everybody here realizes that we all play a significant role in the orchestra, and I think that's, again, very humbling.
I think to go along with that, also our professors really give us help. We get to work with very specific professors. We get to work with friends. Everyone is very into the orchestra too. There's no one that's just like, one of the things that Dr. Grabowski says, if we don't have 100% participation, then we're not going to have 100% of our sound and get that wonderful sound that you'll hear tonight.
So how do you think Dr. Gabrowski, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, has encouraged y'all throughout your practicing for up to this performance?
I think when he first came and directed the orchestra, the amount of preparation that he had really encouraged me, because I saw that he was ready to go from the get-go, 100%, every single rehearsal, and I can't do anything but just meet that standard.
Yeah, I think his standards that he sets for us are super high. He really has that professional level of expectations for us to follow, and so I really appreciate that he really pushes us and he doesn't let us slide on any kind of anything.
Okay, well, we think that the audience will be very excited to hear y'all's performance tonight.
I do have one last question, though. What was it kind of like for your first day here at Orchestra?
Oh, man. It was just so... I was nervous. I was very, very nervous. I came here. I already knew some people here, but even then, it just being surrounded by other people who have been doing the same thing for the past 3-4+ years. It was really nerve-wracking, but as the rehearsal went by, they showed that I could be comfortable here, and they always showed me support. So I was nervous at first, but as the rehearsal went, it got better and better.
Well, I do believe that is all the time we have today. But we want to thank you guys for coming here and talking with us.
Thank you.
We're going to be taking a quick break, but stay tuned. When we return, we'll talk more about the music you'll hear tonight and have a special interview with saxophonist Jamal Brown. Welcome back to the SFA Orchestra of the Pines pre-show. We're getting ready for the concert and talking about the music that will be performed tonight. So Colin, what are some of the pieces that we can expect in tonight's performance?
Well, Megan, some of the works that will be performed tonight are Mozart's Symphony No. 25, Respighi's Pines of Rome, and Dubois' Alto Saxophone Concerto.
Let's go through the history of each piece. The first one is Mozart's Symphony No. 25. Mozart wrote this when he was just 17 in 1773, and one important thing about the symphony is there are 4 distinct movements ranging from somber to joyful.
It is considered one of the most tragic pieces that Mozart composed and adds a lot of texture as it goes through those different movements.
Now taking a look at our second piece. Pines of Rome was written in 1924 by Respighi and is the second of his City of Rome trilogy.
The trilogy is about the city of Rome, but this one specifically talks about the pine trees in the 4 locations of Rome at different times of day.
Now let's move on to our third piece, the Alto Saxophone Concerto. Dubois wrote the concerto in 1959. It's considered a difficult piece for saxophonists to perform, and it's going to be interesting to see soloist Jamal Brown tackle this challenge.
Speaking of Jamal, we met up with him earlier this week for a special interview and performance. Let's take a look.
When I was young, I always loved music. My passion for music started before I ever played the saxophone. When I was young, me and my family used to sing all the time. I have an older brother who's a year older than me that plays trombone, and he does music as well. And when he was in the 6th grade, I saw him go into band and start playing trombone, and I was like, man, he looks like he's really having fun. I think I want to play an instrument too. And when you're in 6th grade, they do a little test for you to see what you're good at and what you're not. Well, I was terrible at trumpet, so I was like, please let me play saxophone. So they were like, okay, we'll stick you on saxophone. And from there, I found a great passion for saxophone that I had never found for anything else. And starting from 6th grade on, I knew that I never wanted to stop playing. Music for me means reaching out to people in a way that and I can get a response from people that I can't get when I use words. It's a way for me to express feelings that I may not be comfortable with saying with my mouth, and it's also a way for me to reach out to other people of different cultures and to say, hey, me and you really aren't that different. Let me show you how we can both enjoy this music together in the same way, and we can talk to one another without ever even speaking a different language. We can talk to one another. As a musician, there is no way for a person's personality and a person's being to not be somewhere in the music that a person can find if they're being true to the way that they want to play their music. For me, my playing oftentimes comes off as more powerful, more loud, and I guess as the type of person that I am, I'm not a soft-spoken person, I don't think. So my playing often doesn't come off in a soft-spoken way, and it comes off more stately and declamatory, as opposed to some other people that I know who are shy or more timid, and their playing comes off as more reserved. And there's no right or wrong answer for it, which is why music is so great. But I think my music comes off absolutely through my personality. So the piece that I'm playing is the Dubois Concerto, and it is a very kind of flashy piece. It starts out with a big cadenza, which is like a kind of free type of part of the music where I play what's written on the page, but it's very free. The orchestra is not even playing with me for certain parts of the music, and it starts out with this big grand opening that goes into a very contrasting part of the music, and it kind of bounces around. So it's a very contrasting movement from piece of music from one movement to another. I think the most exciting part is that probably that the very beginning part of the piece, there is a lot of contrasting parts even in it, and it allows me to show some of my very soft playing, some of my very loud playing, some of my most expressive playing, some of my really fast playing, some of my really slow and yearning playing. And so I really enjoy the very beginning of it, where I get to show off a lot of different things that the saxophone can do. My name is Jamal Brown, and I hope you enjoy my performance tonight.
We'll be back after the break with an interview with Director of Orchestral Activities, Dr. Greg Grabowski. Stay with us. Welcome back to the SFA Orchestral Pre-Show. The concert will begin at 7:30, and we're counting down the time by bringing you behind the scenes with some of the performers and music you'll hear tonight.
Each piece performed tonight has been perfected through hours of dedicated practice. The orchestra is an auditioned ensemble, so each student competes each year for his or her spot. It takes both skill and commitment.
Our Danica Sauter caught up with the new Director of Orchestral Activities, Dr. Greg Grabowski, to discuss how he teaches aspiring musicians and puts together a show like we'll see tonight.
So thank you so much for joining us here today. So, Dr. Grabowski, you are the new Director of Orchestra Activities. Tell me, what does that position entail?
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to do this. So as Director of Orchestral Activities, I run all things related to the orchestra program here. My main position is preparing the SFA Symphony Orchestra, preparing performances, scheduling, auditioning, string players, and even preparing all the wind players that play in the orchestra. So that's a big part of what we do, and kind of all the peripheral activities that go along with that. For example, it's the spring semester, we're in our audition season, so I help organize and coordinate incoming students, incoming application auditions for students interested in majoring here, and just kind of getting them to be a part of the orchestra program at SFA.
As the new director, what changes to the department have you made so far?
There are a lot of things I try to be mindful of, in respecting a lot of the tradition that that is here. The program here, the School of Music, has grown considerably in the past 10 years. The orchestra has grown considerably. And so I'm trying to just continue that growth of my predecessor. So this semester, just really trying to continue the quality performance is one of my biggest priorities, and making sure we're making great music. I'm hoping as we grow in the future, I'm hoping to increase the number of performances that the orchestra does, because we are making such great music. The students are doing such a phenomenal job that I want to make sure that we're showcasing that and giving them enough performance opportunities. In the fall, we'll have 3 full performances. One of them will actually be a designated student concerto competition concert. So every year we have a student concerto competition, and we pick 4 winners from that, and they will be featured soloists. Starting this year is for our May 1st concert, where we have a combined choral orchestral work that we collaborate with the choirs here at SFA, that I will actually be conducting that. So we just see a greater connection with all the departments.
Explain to me, what is the Orchestra of the Pines? And specifically, what will this upcoming show be like?
So the Orchestra of the Pines is the flagship symphony orchestra for Stephen F. Austin. Mm-hmm. It is an all-student orchestra in which we have both majors and non-majors that get to perform this music together. This concert is, one of our feature pieces for this concert is Respighi's Pines of Rome. And for anybody who's seen Fantasia 2000, if they've seen the bit with the flying whales, they'll know this piece. And it's a really fun piece, it's a really exciting piece, it's a very challenging piece. It has a bit of a story, a bit of a program to it, and kind of, it's inspired of different places in Rome and different areas of these different pine trees. So the first section is in this garden with children playing. So there's a lot of exciting music happening with that, as we can kind of picture these kids playing. And then the scene suddenly changes as we go to the pines over this catacomb. So we hear this almost subterranean kind of chant and melody that's played on top of that. And when we get to the next section, we are outside. This is, in the middle of the night, in a full moon, outside the temple of Janus. And so we hear the birds chirping, and it has a very different texture. It's it's just a very colorful kind of scene. And as the sun rises, we are now on this Roman road, this ancient Roman road. As we imagine the armies of the Roman Empire, kind of this almost imaginary army as it marches in as the sun comes up. And it just ends with this really loud kind of triumphant kind of fanfare. So it's going to be big and loud, and it's such a really, really cool piece.
Could you explain what goes into prepping for a concert like this?
In the way I approach rehearsing this, we're going to have to rehearse a lot of smaller sections. So I would rehearse just the brass or just the woodwinds and do different sections like that. Whereas the first part of the concert, we have Mozart's Symphony 25, which is a more chamber-like piece with strings and less winds. And so I rehearse that differently, and just trying to get the right kind of style of the time period. It's hard to believe that I get to do this as a job, because this is just so much fun that I get to teach these students how to make great music.
Anyways, I think that is all the time we have. Thank you so much again for joining me in this conversation. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Live from Turner Auditorium, we'll get to see the orchestra perform in just a few minutes.
We're getting close to time for the performance to start. Thank you so much for watching our pre-show. I'm Megan Carswell.
And I'm Colin Maxwell. We hope you guys enjoy the show. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this.
Hello and welcome back to the SFA concert, orchestra concert that is. I'm Megan Carswell.
And I'm Colin Maxwell.
And so we're here to kind of tell you how the first half has been going of the orchestra concert and give you a little behind the scenes of what has been happening to make this broadcast possible. So Colin, do you want to kind of tell us what happened through the first half of the orchestra concert?
Well, the first part was the Mozart Symphony No. 25. And I gotta say, that was probably the most interesting symphony I've seen in a while.
Definitely.
Just kind of like, yeah.
It ranged in each movement from, like how we said in our pre-show, that it went from somber to joyful, and you really felt those emotions as the
You really
concert
did.
was going.
I really liked in the third part where they kind of brought in the horns and the string instruments together. In the second part, they kind of had, in the first part, they just kind of had the strings, not so much the horned instruments. In the second part, they had the string and the horns, but they weren't together, more or less.
Yeah.
They were just kind of separate. But in the third part, they really start like coming together, and I really did enjoy that.
It was very interesting. And let's kind of talk about the second piece that was performed, the concerto with Jamal Brown. there was no challenge when it came to him playing that saxophone.
It was amazing. Honestly, I feel like that piece was made specifically for Jamal, just to show off the wide range of abilities he's able to do with the saxophone.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the second half.